Hey everybody, and welcome back to Carly K Knits. It is Friday night, and for this week's video, before I settle in for an evening and weekend full of fun, crafty time, I decided that I wanted to do a little bit of a haul, except for it's stuff that I already have again, so more of a tour, perhaps, of all of my knitting equipment. All of the things that I currently use, have used in the past, that helps me make the things that I make, because I love knowing what people use to knit up their stuff, and watching other people talk about the pros and cons of different things has helped me make informed choices about what I'm going to buy. And I really have a mixed bag of supplies that I use, different needles and different equipment. And I've learned a lot over the years about what I like and what I don't like. And I've evolved to like some things and then like different things later and all that jazz. So I kind of wanted to show you my evolution of supplies and tools that I use for my knitting. I have some unique things. I have some things that everybody seems to have. Not everybody, but like people online have. Some of it's kind of unusual. So let's start with, I made a handy dandy list so I don't forget anything because I've got a lot of things. Let's start. My very first foray in knitting ever was when I was a teenager, and I actually started knitting on a loom for the very first time. Knitting looms I think are great for, you know, anyone, but also I feel like especially kids, and you can make so much fun stuff on these knitting looms. My first ever knitting project that I can remember was on a loom that was this size, and I made a scarf that was 12 feet long. It was my like boredom project, and I didn't really care about making a usable anything. I just was like doing something to do something, and I just wanted to make a scarf as long as I could make it. So I made a circle scarf on one of these that was 12 feet long, and I'm honestly still kind of impressed with myself for doing that. But I have all of these looms. These aren't the same ones that I had when I was a teenager, but I've had these for a while. I haven't used them in a long time though, to be honest with you. Now that I understand knitting not on a loom, I've come to realize that I actually really prefer not knitting on a loom. But if I ever decide that I want to get back to these, I'm glad I still have them. That's kind of the jumping off point it was for me. So the next area that I found myself in was straight needles. And I think that's kind of the natural progression for a lot of people who are starting to learn to knit. Like, I didn't even know circular needles existed. I didn't know what they were for. And so I went and I got some straight needles. These guys, these gold and purple straight needles, actually came with a kit that had like a little book about like learning the basic knit stitches and stuff. And the book was not helpful, to be honest with you, but I did get these needles out of them, and I used them when I was learning some of the basics that I was trying to teach myself. And, you know, to be honest with you, I haven't used them since because I've discovered that I prefer a circular needle even if I'm knitting something flat, but they were a good benchmark for me. And then I also wanted to experiment with some larger gauges because I was getting frustrated that things were taking a really long time, and I didn't realize that that's like part of it. So I got some bigger ones. I don't even know where the other one of these is, but you know, experimenting. I also got some straight wood needles around that time because I was having a hard time with dropping stitches off of my needles because everything felt so slippery. And so I got these wood ones to see if that would help me, especially because I was such a beginner at the time that I didn't have the control to keep my stitches on a metal needle. And getting these really did help me. So I'm glad I have these, and if I ever need them, they're there, but I also haven't really used these since then either. They're good to have, and I like having my straight needles just in case I ever want to go back to them, you know? In terms of other straight needles, I also have a couple of sets of DPNs. As you can see, these ones are literally still in the package. I haven't ever used these ones in this size, and I'm missing inexplicably one of the 5 purple ones that I have. I definitely am a magic loop person and small circular person over a DPN person. I bought these because I was making the Musselburgh hat by Ysolda Teague, and it recommended starting it off and really doing the whole hat if you wanted to with DPNs, because you're doing that like eyelet or pinhole cast on, that's what it's called. And usually DPNs are good for that, and it is. but I have found that they're a little too fiddly for me, and I really just haven't used them a lot. And it's something that I would like to branch out more into and see if maybe I just need to have the right project, or, you know, maybe since then I've learned more about how things work, maybe these will be better. I don't know. I'm just not really a DPN person. So these are my only DPNs, and I don't even use half of them. So after my straight needle experience, and I learned that circular needles existed, I needed to buy some. But I still wasn't into my like learning process of knitting enough to know if it was gonna be something I'd want to continue on with. Like, I wasn't sure it was gonna be a hobby that would be something that would last a long time, or that I'd want to invest a lot of money in. So I decided to buy a cheap set of circulars off of Amazon. Now, I don't condone Amazon. I actually canceled my Amazon subscription not too long ago. I would much rather buy things directly from the people selling them or from small businesses around me. But these I had back a couple of years ago, and they were very cheap. And I definitely got what I paid for. I haven't opened this in years. I don't even know what it looks like in here anymore. You know, there's many sizes, and they're multicolored, which is very fun. They don't have very long cords, so that's kind of disheartening that like you can't really make a lot of different, you know, lengthed things. I bought these when I decided I wanted to knit my very first sweater, and I was knitting a raglan top-down all one-piece sweater. They were great for a minute, but then my cords were getting too small for the circumference that I needed, so I eventually had to upgrade mid-project because these were just not cutting it. The other thing about this particular set is that, I don't know if you can see this, but on the cables where they screw in, there's like a little bit of an angle here, so you kind of have to hold them at a certain angle, and these angles don't twist at all. So it was just kind of generally uncomfortable, and I was, again, still new enough at knitting that I'm not really sure why I bought metal needles in the first place, because they were too slippery. And these guys are not very high quality metal, and the color just started rubbing off of them almost immediately. You know, to teach me the basics of knitting in the round, these were great. They did teach me a lot, but I did need to upgrade from here, and I am so glad that I upgraded the way that I did. So let me show you what I am using most of the time now. I upgraded to the circular Licky? I've heard many pronunciations of this word, L-Y-K-K-E, but I have two circular sets of these, and I love them. I love them. I think they're fantastic. I'll open them up and show you what they look like on the inside. They're wonderful. They are driftwood. I have the like kind of classic driftwood color sets, and I love using these. I love the shorty set, especially for things like sleeves on a sweater, hats. It comes with not only these shorty needles, but the cables it comes with are also very short. So you can do things like sleeves and hats. I love the driftwood. It does give a good level of grippiness, and they're really comfortable to use. As you can see, I have one set missing in here because I'm using them for a project right now. They come in a pretty wide range of sizes. I'd say that the only complaint I have is I wish that they made smaller, long needles. And honestly, I wish they made even smaller gauge, shorter needles as well, because when you're knitting up like a fingering weight sweater or something larger that requires a, you know, size 1 or something, you don't have that option. But I know that that's also hard to do in an interchangeable needle. The long set goes from a US 4 3.5 millimeter to a, what are you, a US 17 12 millimeter. So that is a pretty good range, which is nice. And then the small set is a US 10.5, 6.5 millimeter to a, their teeny ones are US 3's 3.25 millimeters. So really, it's a pretty good range. You can make some pretty fine gauge stuff, especially with these smallest needles. I haven't really had to outsource buying more fixed needles that many times, but you know, not every set can be perfect. Not everything is perfect, but I really love these. I use them for almost every project that I do, and I couldn't recommend them more. I think that they're really great needles. This isn't sponsored, by the way. None of these things are sponsored. Who would sponsor me? I have like 115 subscribers. So, you know, I feel like that goes without being said. But I'm gonna say it anyway, just in case. There are instances that I have come across where I needed something different that these could not accommodate. So that is where my collection of badly organized and tangled up fixed circulars come into play, and I do have a fair few of them. I have many brands, many cord lengths, many gauges of needles, and they've all been used for different things, you know? I've had a lot of different needs for them. I'd say that the biggest thing that I have used them for in the past is these long guys, is knitting socks. These are also like a brand with these long cables. And I have these in a size, what are you? I have a size 1, 2.25 millimeter, and I have a size 2, 2.75 millimeter. And these are what I was using for a long time doing magic loop for socks. I really only ever did magic loop socks, and that worked really well for a while, and I still like doing magic loop socks, but these also have been useful for doing fine gauge projects. Like, for example, my CatKnit Pullover is a very fine gauge yarn, and so when I was doing the yoke and I needed a long cable, I was able to use these, and they were super useful in that project. These are just like cheap ones that I got from Michael's because I wanted them. These I think are also, these gold ones are a size 1, they're 2.25 millimeter, yeah, so a size 1. And then I also have these plastic ones that are 8 millimeter. I really don't use these that much because I do prefer my other ones that I have, but if I need them, if I have more than one project that I need a 1 millimeter for, I've got them. So that's cool. That is, I guess, the one thing about the Likey circular needles is the plastic cables. They sometimes can get kind of bent and warped, especially if I leave a project like in my project bag in the car, which I shouldn't do, but I do it. But you can also just heat them up and fix them up, and that's fine. Bob, what was that? And then these guys also have these clear plastic cables, which are not my favorite, but they're like fine. More recent acquisitions of fixed circulars that I have are these Teague, I don't know how to say that word either. Knitting words are really hard. Fixed circulars. I bought these 3 for knitting socks. I had been doing magic loop for so long, and I really wanted to try using 9-inch circulars for socks just to see what the experience was like, and I really like them. I really like them. You do usually still have to go to magic loop to close up the toe and like graft the toe stitches, but for the majority of the sock, these are awesome. And so I bought them in, I believe, a 0, 1, and a 2. So I have, you know, a good range of sizes for various socks with different gauges and things. And I really like using these. And then I also bought these guys. These are Teague. Ooh, I don't even remember what length these are, but they're a shorter length that I have been using for my CatKnit Pullover. I use this to start the neck, and I actually will probably go back to these for the arms, maybe. We'll see. We'll see if I can use these for the arms or if I have to like magic loop the arms. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But I have just really come to enjoy the metal tips on these Teague needles. There's a reason that so many people really like these, and I get the hype because they are so slick, so slim. I feel like they really provide for a really great level of accuracy. Like you can really pick a stitch out really easily with these, whereas the wood tips on the Leica needles sometimes are a little bit duller. They're not quite as sharp, they're not quite as pointy. So sometimes you have a hard time picking up a tighter stitch. But these guys are so slippy and so pointy that once you kind of get the hang of using them, it feels like a breeze to use them. The next time I buy a set of circulars, it might be a set of interchangeable ChatKnits. It might be, because these are pretty cool. I also have another fixed circular size 1 ChatKnit needle, but it is currently on the body of this guy, my CatKnit pullover, which I have made even more progress on since the last time I posted about this. I have split for the sleeves. I have done several inches of body stitches. How exciting is that? I'm stoked about it. Very, very cool. But currently, on the needles I'm using for this are these ChatKnit fixed circulars that man, especially with this really, really fine gauge yarn, it is like knitting on air. It is so nice. It feels so good to use. Other equipment that are not needles, I do have some fun stuff to talk about with that. I have some fun kind of random bits and bobs, things like tape measure. I have one of these classic long tape measures. I don't have the retractable kind. One of these days I'll get a retractable kind, but I do like using just this classic tape measure to measure my things. I have stitch markers. These are CatKnit's flight of stitch markers that come in various shapes. They have like triangles, they have big circles, they have tiny circles, but I really like these because they are very colorful. And I do like, I don't know if you can see this at all, whatever. They are these like color-coded stitch markers. I don't know, I just really like the look at them. They're so geometric and interesting, and I like the colors. I had a set of just the like plain metal colors, like there was like silver and rose gold of the same brand and the same sizes. So I have kind of just put those sets together, and they exist in this nice little stitch marker box. I do have a set of barber cords, and I have had not great luck, to be honest with you, on these. I think that the purpose of them is great, so you can try on your work as you go. Maybe I'm not using them right, I'm not sure, but they keep falling off my needles and I keep dropping stitches. So I don't use these very often. Usually I will just thread another cord so that I can try it on and not risk dropping stitches if this happens to pop off a needle. But I have them if I ever want to use them, and a lot of people really seem to like them, so good for those people. As far as my yarn scraps, I have a lot of scraps that I've thrown away. I don't like throwing away yarn scraps, even though I don't really know what I'm going to use them for. But currently I am putting all of my little end pieces that I cut off from weaving in ends, or also when I have like a new hank that I need to unwind, the little bits that you cut off to wind those up, I put those little bits in here. So a little jar, but it's getting pretty full. So I need to probably graduate to a larger jar soon. And then lastly, I want to talk about my yarn dispense system, I guess is what you can call it. I used to be a yarn bowl person, or just like having the yarn around person. And caking yarn is great. I love a caked yarn. That's my preferred way to use yarn. But I found that doing a center pull from a yarn cake does not always bode well, because it will just collapse in on itself. Even if it's in a yarn bowl, it just collapses in on itself, and then it gets tangled at the end of your experience with that cake of yarn. And if you do an outer pull, that's kind of fine, but that usually means that the ball or the cake that you're using tends to like roll around or get stuck, and it's, you know, it's just not ideal. And so, as I have mentioned on here before, we have a 3D printer, and I have a Christopher who is really good at modeling stuff. And so last year, we, together with many beta tests and prototypes, worked out a system for not only yarn usage so that you can dispense it to yourself really easily while you're working on your project, but also a storage system. So let me kind of show you how it works. We're very proud of it. I use it every time I'm knitting. It's fantastic. So here we go. All right, so I kind of have to take you on the go to show you this. So this is my yarn wall, and my plan for my craft room is to get several more of these pegboards so that I can put all of my yarn on a pegboard, because I've got a lot more yarn that I don't really want to stay on the shelf because I am already starved for space for finished objects. So I'd like to get it all on the wall. But this yarn storage system is something that we came up with probably a little over a year ago now, I'm not sure. We call it the Stash Master, and it's not a product you can buy anywhere. We just made it ourselves. We 3D printed all of the parts and tested them and had like lots of prototypes and yada, yada, yada. But anyway, the point is that this allows you to have a storage solution for your yarn as well as a dispense system. So what's really cool about these is that you wind your yarn up into cakes as you would from a hank or a skein, and you put a dowel in the middle of it. So it's like almost like a toilet paper roll where it just kind of fits right straight through the middle. And then you put the dowel on these hooks. So I have a few different hook styles, as you can see. Some are more hooky and some are less hooky. And we've actually come to the conclusion that the less hooky ones are better. But I need to print more to replace the more hooky ones. But they all work. They're fine. They're really cool because not only can I sit here and see all of my yarn, I also have put some extra pegs on the side to hold the hanks that I have not wound yet, which is pretty cool. But you can see it all, but you can also like knit while your yarn is on the wall. So it's a solution for storage, but it is also a dispensing system. So for example, I've got my in progress CatKnit pullover right here. I have her sitting on a nice little hanger connected to the skein that I'm using. So if I were to take this off, and let's pretend that I'm sitting here. Hi, Millie. Pretend I'm sitting here on my little couch and I'm knitting. As I'm knitting, I can pull on this yarn and it will continue to dispense yarn for me, which is really, really cool. And it just keeps rolling off and it doesn't get tangled, which is very, very cool. So that is a solution that we have come up with that I really, really like. I love using this. I love knitting in here because I can sit on my couch and I can just pull my yarn from the wall. I don't have to have a separate yarn bowl or have a ball of yarn rolling around on me. It's just right here. It's awesome. So yeah, that's kind of that. It's pretty cool. So that was the wall storage and use case product that we have figured out and developed. And I love it. But I think what we are even prouder of is our solution for dispensing your yarn when you are not at home or next to your wall storage unit if you want to knit somewhere else in your house. Like I like to knit on our couch and watch TV while we're, hanging out together, or at my desk if I'm working on something at my desk and I want to take a break and knit for a little bit. You don't always want to be knitting right here. So the other thing that we have developed is this. We call her the Stash Master Go. And it is again, a 3D printed yarn dispensing system, but in a mobile package. So basically how she works is it's collapsible. So when you're not going to be using it, you take the pieces apart. It's got these two arms and a cross beam for guiding your yarn, and they fit in the drawer all together. But you shut it and you have just this little box that has everything in it that you need to, put your yarn on a dispenser thing. You throw this in your knitting bag with your project, and then when you take it out, you open it up, you take out your pieces, your arms, Oh, and there's also other compartments in here that you can keep other stuff in, which is super cool. You can even, I even have a couple of other things in the compartment where you keep the arms and the crossbeam. Like I've got a darning needle and some stitch markers. They fit in there too, which is cool. But you just stick these guys in with their little peggy feet. And then you put your little crossbar on and you're good to go. And let me show you an example of how this looks and works. Let's take this gorgeous fingering weight yarn, and basically you stick this guy on the dowel that we talked about before. It's the same dowel that works on the wall. You put this in the little channel here. You take your yarn, you thread it through the little open loop, and you just pull on it. And it just dispenses your yarn to you, which is really, really cool. We've done a lot of testing about the placement and the height of the arms and the bar so that, you know, you're not gonna have tangles. It's not gonna be difficult to use. It's gonna keep pulling on a consistent basis without tripping you up. And it does. It's so cool. It's honestly so amazing. I love it. I use it all the time. We've considered selling the files to print this yourself. So if anyone's interested in that, let me know, because that's something that we've considered doing on like Etsy or something. I don't know. The best is when you're doing color work and you need more than one yarn, you get 2 of these and you just sit them next to each other, and then you can pull both yarns at, you know, whatever rate each one needs to be pulled. It's so cool. I'd say that the only use case that this doesn't work for is if you have really, really chunky yarn. Obviously there's a limited size that you can put on here of a yarn cake. And then same thing if you have like a very, very large skein. Like if you buy a pound of love from Lion brand from Michael's, you're not going to be able to put that whole pound on here, obviously. But you can break it into different dowels and you can have those in storage, and then you can just pop them on here and be ready to go. And the yarn, throwing that in your bag, it's really not any bigger than just throwing in the yarn itself. It's just got the little dowel on it. You throw that in your project bag and pop it on here and you're good to go. It's so cool, and I'm obsessed with it. I'm obsessed with it. I'll never not knit using this again if I had a choice. Like it is the best. But yeah, that's pretty much all of my equipment. I talked about in a video a while ago my Swift and my winder, but they're pretty generic Swifts and winders. Again, I bought those on Amazon a couple of years ago. But yeah, I really like all the stuff I have. I feel like I don't have too much stuff, but I always want more stuff, right? So I'm sure that I will get an upgrade one of these days. I'm sure that I will get more, acquire more, and learn more about what I do like and what I don't like. If you have any questions about these products, let me know. I'm gonna link as much as I can in the description below as far as things that you can buy if you want to buy them. I just think that knitting stuff is cool. I love talking about the equipment, and you know, I feel like so many people talk about the yarn, and a lot of people talk about needles and stuff too, but like there's so much more to talk about and obsess over. It's just really fun. I have a really good time with it. I hope you guys had a good time. I hope you liked listening to me spew all of the things that I have and use, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. Bye!